We're able
And what
to
were they
rent
being offered at the
affordably.
last election? National service.
Yeah.
I think probably Rishi did more to increase turnout amongst young people than any politician before him.
Andy, you're a Labour mayor. For the first time in 14 years, we have a Labour government. You're smiling as I say that. Has there been a big vibe shift in Manchester since the election results were announced?
Oh, massively so. People feel lifted. Everyone I've spoken to in this building this week kind of feels like, we were in a dark tunnel and it felt at times it was hard to see, where things were going. Everything has felt like it's been a bit broken and been going backwards. And all of a sudden, we've kind of sprung out of that and we're into a situation where we have a government taking quick decisions, saying it can fix things, and of course empowering the Greater Manchester Combined Authority to go for growth. Gone are the days of us sort of, as I say, shouting into the wilderness at times, or even not even in the room when big decisions like the cancellation of HS2 or the imposition of Tier 3 during the pandemic were taken. Hopefully those days are gone for good.
You're very aligned with the new Labour government on many things, but one thing they've not said they will do is bring in any kind of rent regulation or rent control. But that is something that you have previously said you'd like. Sadiq Khan has also said that he wants that in London. Where are you on that now? And have you spoken to them about rent inflation? Because it's going up faster than overall inflation.
Well, just on the broad point first, I don't believe Greater Manchester can be everything that I want it to be in the next decade or so if we don't free it from the grip of the housing crisis. It is difficult for people to find affordable places to rent here already, and our housing crisis actually gets worse every year because we're still losing homes for social rent through right to buy, and so we're losing more than we're building. So, we've got to change that. And we have to, in my view, change the private rented sector, both from a sort of housing standards point of view. And this week we're going to bring in a Greater Manchester Good Landlord Charter. We're expecting it to pass through our combined authority on Friday. So that'll be the first such charter on a city region-wide basis anywhere in England. But alongside that, and to strengthen that, we would be calling for stronger regulation of the private rented sector and the return of a strengthened renters reform bill. Now, there were commitments made actually during the election campaign to that, so we're hoping that that might appear as early as the first King's speech.
Do you want more power and funding to build council-owned social housing or council housing?
I do, because I think that can save money in terms of public spending and bills that councils are currently finding very, very hard to control. So for me, that's an invest to save approach. But I think there's also other changes that should be considered. When I look at the chaotic way in which the Home Office manages the asylum accommodation issue, I think that adds to the problem as well, because sometimes they will just they won't send them in, but their contractors will go in who operate their contracts and buy up often quite poor quality accommodation in the private rented sector. But then councils are almost competing against those companies for temporary accommodation, and that can inflate the cost of the whole thing. I think there is a really clear case for that whole the management of accommodation, including the asylum accommodation, to be for local authorities, councils, to hold the ring over all of it. The biggest risk to growth, I would say, housing is definitely a risk to growth, as I indicated to you before. If people can't find places to rent here, word might spread, well, you can't really move to Greater Manchester, it's very difficult to live, and with something of the London effect built here, which we don't want to see. Not that nothing against London, but we don't want it to price people out of housing.
As a Londoner, I don't take that personally. I actually just wish that I didn't live there.
Well, we're, I think, proving attractive to people perhaps in their 20s and 30s who realise they can have a different lifestyle here. And I think that's one of the reasons why Greater Manchester is succeeding in this moment. Lots of talented young people are coming here to both get the graduate jobs that we've got, but also to have a different standard of living, which I think is a compelling reason why, it's destination Greater Manchester at the moment. But Beyond that, though, I've got to be honest and say, well, what are the risks to growth? I mean, you're talking about those essential enablers. I actually would say the biggest of all, possibly even bigger than housing, is the technical education system, or the lack of a technical education system, because it's a very fragmented landscape. The domination of the university route in relation to the school system is a risk, I would say. We've currently got an education system in England that is simply not set up to move fast enough to meet the ever-changing needs of a dynamic Greater Manchester economy. And that's why this week we are setting out plans under the devolution deal we agreed last year for the Greater Manchester Baccalaureate. So this is about creating an equal alternative to the university route for our young people. We'll let them see the jobs. Then again at 14, tell them the GCSEs that the employers value, that are not part of the English Baccalaureate, which is linked to the university route. So for instance, engineering GCSE is definitely in the MBAC, not in the EBAC. Music in the MBAC. We're a music city region. To me, it's outrageous that those creative subjects are frozen out of the EBAC. At the moment, I would say, if I were to describe Greater Manchester as it is today, young people can see the skyscrapers from their bedroom windows, but they don't see a path for them to working in some of these amazing new places that we've got. And my mission in this term is to give them that path. If I'm about anything, I'm really about working class aspiration. Young people growing up with their horizons completely expanded. Never having a situation where the postcode of the bed where you're born sort of in many ways predetermining the life that you can have. That I'm all about sort of breaking that apart. So I've given our young people a free bus pass, 16 to 18. We're going to further reduce fares for 18 to 21-year-olds. But the MBAC could be the biggest illustration of an education system that offers a path for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, when I was growing up, the world was a very, very different place. If I was a teenager now, there's no way I'd have the life I have. First person in my family to go to university.
Yeah.
All of the grant funding I had is gone. Or, the fact my parents lost their house and then they were able to
rent. And what were they being
affordably.
offered at the last election? National service.
Yeah.
I think probably Rishi did more to increase turnout amongst young people than any politician before him. So maybe that's a positive legacy that he's left behind. But no, I have always taken the view that devolution has to do the reverse of some of the bad things we've seen in Whitehall. Westminster and Whitehall for many years made young people their target for cuts. We have made them our priority for investment. Why? You cannot have a Greater Manchester that I want to see if you're making the next generation, if you're weighing down the next generation before they've even got started.
Levelling up has been dropped. It's gone with the previous government. We're back to being Ministry of Housing, local government and communities. How do you feel about that? Again, you're smiling. Are you pleased to see levelling up go?
I actually think it's a sensible move, because I've never been one of those who subscribes to putting slogans in the names of government departments or on government bills, or I just, it's like it doth protest too much, doesn't it? You claim you are levelling up because you've renamed a government department. Well, actually, no. You level up if you make a real change in something like this. And so I was always a bit suspicious of it. I mean, I think the phrase is fine. I've no problem with the phrase levelling up. But what I did become very wary of was the overuse of it in relation to anything when it wasn't true levelling up. True levelling up is strategic investment in big infrastructure that kind of changes the potential size of your economy. So, for instance, you mentioned a new railway line between Liverpool and Manchester. That is levelling up. And, obviously we were promised it and not given it by the last government. So the fact that they then stuck that phrase in front of the government department, well, it almost just rubbed our noses in it, to be honest.
And then final question. I've read that you're doing a DJ set. Mm-hmm. And I have to ask, if you had to pick one Manchester band, who would it be?
If I look at the band that has been there through the ages for all generations and has a sort of timeless quality about them, I would say it's New Order.
That's the one I landed on the train as well.
Oh, great minds.